Immigration courts along the U.S. Mexico border are working to speed up cases for those impacted by the Remain in Mexico policy. The Executive Office for Immigration Review confirmed it is prioritizing these hearings for the controversial policy over other immigration cases. The Remain in Mexico program requires tens of thousands of asylum seekers to wait in Mexico while their claims are processed. For more on this, I'm joined by CBS News reporter Camilo Montoya-Galvez. Camilo, why are these hearings under the Remain in Mexico program being sped up?
Right, Chris. So what we heard from the Justice Department branch that oversees the nation's immigration courts, it's that they are trying to expedite these, as you mentioned, tens of thousands of cases. The last number we got from the Department of Homeland Security was that more than 30,000 asylum seekers have been placed in this program, right? So they're required to wait in Mexico while their asylum claims are processed in the U.S. So one attorney told me that one of the objectives of this ramped up and expedited effort is that the government wants to issue as many deportations as possible in the shortest amount of period of time possible as well, because one of the interesting things about this program, Chris, is that the vast majority of the asylum seekers placed in it are not able to find lawyers. So it's very difficult for them to go through this very complicated immigration court system.
And the number of people in this program is rapidly growing on a weekly basis, correct?
Right. The last numbers we got were about 3,000 per week, right? And the numbers are so high because obviously the administration is expanding this throughout the entire border, but it's also betting on this program to deter migration, right? They want migrants to know before they journey north that even if they go to the border and claim asylum, they might be returned to Mexico. Well, they'll have to be wait for months, right, before even having the ability to seek asylum in the U.S., right? So for the administration, it is a policy of deterrence.
Now, prioritizing these cases over other immigration cases, what is the impact for people who are waiting for their day in court here in the U.S.?
That's an important point, Chris, because one attorney told me that it will expedite these cases in the Remain in Mexico program, but it might, contribute to the historic backlog in the nation's immigration court systems when it comes to other types of cases, right, inside the U.S., because you will have to move resources, including judges, to handle these particular cases, and you'll have to be postponing other types of cases like family detention cases or other petitions within the U.S. And EOIR, the Justice Department branch that oversees the nation's immigration courts, did confirm 3 days ago to me that they are postponing some of these cases in order to expedite the Remain in Mexico hearings.
And what's the impact, particularly when we're talking about the immigration centers where there's been a lot of reporting on some of them being overcrowded? What's the impact with doing it this way on the people there?
Right. So what we can say from the administration's point of view is that the program has been effective, right? Since the fall of last year, we've seen this surge, particularly in migrant families from Central America, and it hit a record high in May. But the past 2 months, in June and July, we've seen that number dwindled for the first time since last summer. So, in the administration to, defend and when they announce these drops in apprehension, they have directly pointed both to an amped up effort by the Mexican government to enforce their immigration laws, but also this particular policy, which, as we mentioned before, has required tens of thousands of migrants to wait in Mexico.
Now, have you heard any reaction from people who are impacted by this Remain in Mexico policy?
Right. So last month I traveled to the El Paso sector, which is one of the sectors along the border where this policy has been implemented. And I met several families, and I'm still in touch with one of them through WhatsApp. And half the family was allowed to come inside the U.S. They're now in Alabama. The kids are starting school. But the dad and one of the child are still in Mexico because they were placed in this program, and they have been unable to find lawyers, right? And their case is not an anomaly. Most of these people are unable to find lawyers, and when they show up to court, they're unrepresented. So it's very difficult for them to be allowed in the U.S. So the family is going through this difficult period where half of the family is here, half of the other family is in Mexico, and of course they didn't travel all the way from Guatemala to be separated. So if the father and one of the children are not allowed to come inside, they're thinking about going back to Guatemala.
Camilo, thank you. Some great reporting there. You can read at cbsnews.com.